Humanity stands at a critical point, a crossroads. This moment feels new. It feels unique. The challenges we face seem bigger than ever before. Technology moves at a blinding speed. The world is connected in ways our ancestors could not imagine. Yet, in another sense, we have been here before. The essence of our struggle is not new at all. It is an ancient story, a story about losing our way and finding it again. The noise of the modern world is loud. It distracts us. It pulls our attention outward, away from the quiet space within. But the fundamental questions remain the same. Who are we? Why are we here? What is our relationship to the Earth and to the vast universe? The path we are on is filled with great turmoil. There is confusion. There is conflict. There is a deep sense of unease that touches so many lives. We look for solutions in the external world. We seek answers in politics, in technology, and economic systems. We believe that if we can just fix the outer circumstances, we will find peace. But this approach only addresses the symptoms. It does not touch the root cause of our collective illness. The ancient wisdom traditions knew this. They understood that the outer world is always a reflection of the inner world. The chaos we see around us is a mirror. It is showing us the chaos that exists within the collective human consciousness. This is why looking back to ancient wisdom is so important now. Not to escape the present moment, but to understand it more deeply. The cycles of history repeat themselves. The patterns of human consciousness evolve slowly. The warnings given by sages thousands of years ago resonate with startling clarity today. They spoke of times when humanity would forget its divine origin. They described an age of darkness where the material world would become all-important, an age where the sacred would be forgotten. By listening to these ancient voices, we are not dwelling in the past. We are accessing a timeless wisdom that can illuminate the path forward and help us make a conscious choice at this crossroads. We are being called to awaken. This is the opportunity that lies hidden within the crisis. Every challenge, every difficulty is an invitation to go deeper, to look beyond the surface of things, to rediscover the dimension of ourselves that is not of this world, yet is not separate from it. The choice before us is simple, yet profound. Do we continue down the path of unconsciousness driven by fear and ego, or do we choose a different path? A path of presence, of awareness, of reconnecting with the sacredness of being. This is the choice that will determine not just our future, but the future of life on this precious planet. It is a choice each of us must make. Among the great wisdom traditions of the ancient world, there is a collection of texts known as the Hermetica. These writings contain profound teachings about the nature of God, the cosmos, and humanity. They are a guide to spiritual awakening. Within these texts lies a powerful prophecy. It is sometimes called the Lament of Asclepius. This prophecy speaks of a future time, a time when humanity would drift far from its spiritual moorings. It describes a world where the connection to the divine, to the intelligence that animates all of life, would become weak. A world where people would value only the things they could see and touch. The material world would become their only reality. The prophecy warns that this spiritual decline would have devastating consequences. It would not be a private, internal matter. The loss of inner connection would manifest outwardly in the world. It would lead to a decay of morality. It would create a society where goodness is no longer honored, a society where virtue is seen as foolishness. The prophecy describes a time when reverence for the sacred would disappear. The temples would be empty. The ancient rites would be forgotten. The world, which the prophecy calls a cosmos, a living, sacred being, would no longer be seen as worthy of wonder and admiration. It would simply become a resource to be exploited. This ancient text foresaw a time of great darkness and confusion. It painted a picture of a world where justice would perish, where laws would be ignored or twisted to serve selfish ends. The prophecy speaks of a deep illness settling upon the human soul, an illness of forgetfulness. Humanity would forget its true nature as a bridge between heaven and earth. It would forget its sacred duty as a caretaker of the planet. This forgetfulness, this spiritual amnesia, was identified as the root cause of all the coming troubles. The ecological destruction and the social chaos were not separate problems. They were the inevitable symptoms of this deeper spiritual sickness. The words of the Hermetic prophecy feel incredibly relevant today. They are not just a historical curiosity. They are a mirror held up to our modern world. We are living in the time it describes. We see the obsession with the material. We see the disregard for the sacred. We see the confusion and the moral decay all around us. The The prophecy was not given to induce despair. It was given as a warning, a wake-up call. It was meant to be heard by those who still had ears to hear. It was a call to remember what has been forgotten. It was an invitation to turn around before it is too late. The prophecy of Asclepius goes into great detail about the state of the world during this dark age. It describes a profound inversion of values, a world turned completely upside down. It says that the pious person, the one who lives with reverence and a connection to spirit, will be considered insane. The impious person, the one who acts only from ego and greed, will be praised as wise. The good will be punished as criminals. The evil will be honored as heroes. This is a shocking description. Yet when we look at our world with open eyes, we see this inversion playing out everywhere. We see it in our media, in our culture, and in our economic systems. Think about what our society celebrates. It often celebrates fame for its own sake. It celebrates wealth, no matter how it was acquired. It celebrates ruthless competition and the pursuit of power over others. Those who are quiet, who are gentle, who are dedicated to service without seeking reward are often overlooked. They are seen as naive or weak. Kindness is sometimes mistaken for a lack of ambition. Integrity is seen as an obstacle to success. The pursuit of inner peace is considered a luxury, not a necessity. The voice of the ego is loud and demanding, and it is the voice our world most often listens to and rewards. This is the upside-down world the prophecy warned us about. This inversion creates a state of deep confusion and suffering. When good is called evil and evil is called good, the moral compass of humanity is broken. People no longer know what to believe. They lose their sense of direction. They become cynical and distrustful. This leads to a breakdown of social cohesion. If there are no shared values, no common ground of what is right and true, then society becomes fragmented. It becomes a collection of individuals pursuing their own selfish interests. This is the fertile ground for conflict, for injustice, and for the deep sense of alienation that so many people feel today. The prophecy says that in this time, the very air will be sick. The earth will lose its fruitfulness. The natural order of things will be thrown into disarray. This is not just a poetic metaphor. It is a literal description of what happens when human consciousness is disordered. When we are disconnected from our own inner source, we become a disruptive force on the planet. Our actions are no longer in harmony with the greater whole. We poison the rivers, we pollute the air, we destroy the forests. The external world simply reflects our internal state. The lament of Asclepius is the lament of a world that has lost its soul. At the very heart of the crisis described by the ancient prophecies is a single fundamental problem. It is the core issue from which all other problems emerge. This problem is a kind of collective amnesia. It is the great forgetting. Humanity has forgotten its essential nature. We have forgotten who we truly are. We have come to identify exclusively with our physical bodies and our thinking minds. We believe we are our thoughts, our emotions, our personal histories, our names, our roles in society. We have forgotten the deeper dimension of consciousness, the formless being that is our true self. This is the source of all our suffering and all our destructive behavior. This understanding is not unique to the Hermetic tradition. It is a central teaching in many of the world's great spiritual traditions. Shamanic cultures, for example, have always known this. They speak of soul loss. They understand that a person, or even an entire community, can become disconnected from their spiritual essence. This disconnection leads to illness, depression, and misfortune. The job of the shaman is to journey into the spirit worlds to retrieve that lost part of the soul, to make the person or the community whole again. What our modern world is experiencing is a collective case of soul loss on a massive scale. We are a culture that has lost its connection to its soul. This forgetting is not a philosophical concept. It is a tangible experience. It is the feeling of being separate, separate from each other, separate from nature, and separate from the source of life itself. This feeling of separation is the root of fear, and fear is the driving force behind greed, behind hatred, behind the insatiable need for more. The ego, which is our false sense of self, thrives on this feeling of separation. It needs to define itself by what it is not. It creates enemies to feel secure. It accumulates possessions to feel whole. But it is never satisfied because it is looking for wholeness in the world of form, where it can never be found. Recovering from this great forgetting is the most important task facing humanity. It is the only real solution to our problems. This is not about adopting a new set of beliefs or joining a new religion. It is about a shift in consciousness. It is about awakening from the dream of form. It is about rediscovering the still, silent presence within that is beyond thought, beyond emotion, beyond the story of me. This is the space of true intelligence, true creativity, and true peace. When we touch this space, even for a moment, we begin to remember. We remember our connection to all that is, and in that remembering, the healing of ourselves and our world begins. The multitude of crises we face today can seem, well, pretty overwhelming. We speak of an environmental crisis, a political crisis, a social crisis, and a mental health crisis. We see them as separate issues, each requiring its own specialized solution. We have experts for the economy, experts for the climate, and experts for psychology. But this fragmented approach fails to see the common root. It's a bit like a doctor who treats each symptom of a disease without ever asking what is causing the illness itself. The ancient wisdom traditions offer a simpler yet more profound diagnosis. All of these crises are symptoms. They are the outer manifestations of one single underlying problem, our spiritual disconnection. When we are disconnected from the deeper dimension of who we are, our actions are driven by the ego. The ego is inherently dysfunctional. It lives in a state of constant fear and craving. It sees the world as a collection of separate objects to be used for its own ends. It does not perceive the aliveness, the sacredness, the interconnectedness of all things. So, when a society is dominated by the collective ego, it naturally creates systems that reflect this dysfunction. It creates an economic system based on endless, unsustainable growth. It creates political systems based on conflict and power struggles. It creates a culture that promotes consumption and distraction. This spiritual disconnection is the source of our inner turmoil as well. The anxiety, the depression, the sense of meaninglessness that so many people experience are direct results of this forgetting. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, but we have forgotten the spiritual part. We are like fish who have forgotten they are in the water. We try to find happiness and fulfillment in things that can never deliver them. We chase after success, wealth, and relationships, hoping they will fill the emptiness inside. But the emptiness remains, because what we are truly longing for is the reconnection with our own being. The peace that passes all understanding is not found in the world. It is found within. Therefore, any attempt to solve our problems that does not address this root cause is honestly doomed to fail. We can pass new laws, we can develop new technologies, we can sign international agreements, and sure, some of these things may be helpful on a surface level. But as long as the underlying state of human consciousness remains unchanged, we will simply continue to create new problems. The ego will find new ways to express its dysfunction. The only true and lasting solution is a transformation of consciousness, a shift from ego to presence, a collective awakening to our spiritual nature. This is the great challenge and the great opportunity of our time. The environmental crisis is perhaps the most visible and alarming symptom of our spiritual disconnection. The Earth is sending us a clear message. The rising temperatures, the extreme weather, the loss of biodiversity. These are not random events. They are a reflection of our own inner state. The planet is like a body, and it is showing signs of a severe fever. This fever is caused by the dysfunctional and unconscious behavior of humanity. We have treated the Earth as if it were a dead object, a warehouse of resources for us to plunder. We have failed to see it as our mother, as a living, breathing, sacred being. And now, we are facing the consequences of that blindness. The ancient wisdom traditions always understood the deep connection between humanity and the Earth. They knew that we are not separate from nature, but a part of it. The health of the land and the health of the people were seen as one and the same. When people lived in harmony with the Great Spirit, they also lived in harmony with the earth. They took only what they needed. They gave thanks for the gifts of nature. They performed ceremonies to maintain the balance. They understood that to harm the earth was to harm themselves. This wisdom has been almost completely lost in our modern industrial culture. The way we have treated the planet is a direct mirror of how the ego treats the body and the world. The ego is obsessed with consumption. It is never satisfied. It always wants more. This insatiable hunger is what drives our consumer culture and our addiction to endless growth. We extract, we produce, we consume, and we discard, with no thought for the consequences. We have poisoned the rivers, filled the oceans with plastic, and torn down the ancient forests. We have done this because we do not feel our connection to these things. We do not feel the pain of the earth as our own pain. We are numb. This numbness is the essence of our spiritual illness. The environmental crisis is therefore a spiritual crisis. It is a call to awaken from our slumber of separation. The earth is shouting at us to remember who we are. It is forcing us to confront the results of our unconsciousness. We can no longer ignore the message. The fires, the floods, and the storms are the symptoms. The disease is our disconnection from spirit. The healing of the planet and the healing of humanity are not two separate things. They are one and the same. The healing must begin within. It begins when we start to see the world not with the eyes of the ego, but with the eyes of the soul. It begins when we feel the sacredness of life in every tree, every river, and every stone. Even in its darkest passages, the Hermetic prophecy holds a seed of hope. It does not predict a final, unavoidable doom. Instead, it describes a cosmic cycle. The age of darkness and forgetting is not the end of the story. It is a necessary phase that precedes a great purification and a new beginning. The prophecy states that when the darkness reaches its peak, when the sickness of the human soul seems incurable, the divine will intervene. The creator of all things, the ultimate source of being, will not abandon its creation. It will step in to correct the disorder, to wash away the evil, and to restore the world to its original state of beauty and harmony. This renewal, however, is not something that simply happens to us without our participation. The prophecy implies that our own efforts are part of this divine intervention. The awakening of individual human beings is the mechanism through which the divine works its purpose. It is the conscious choice of individuals to turn away from the path of the ego and toward the path of the heart that begins to shift the collective consciousness. The divine will does not act like a king issuing a decree from on high. It acts through us. It awakens in us. The return of the light to the world is the return of light in the souls of men and women. This is a message of profound hope and empowerment. It means that the future is not set in stone. It means that our present suffering is not meaningless. It is the catalyst for a great awakening. The very intensity of the world's problems is what is forcing us to look for a deeper solution. It is shaking us out of our complacency. The crisis is a spiritual alarm clock, ringing loudly to wake us up from the dream of separation. Each person who hears this alarm and begins to awaken contributes to the great renewal. Each person who chooses presence over thought, love over fear, becomes a beacon of light in the world. The prophecy, therefore, is not a passive prediction, but an active invitation. It invites us to become co-creators of a new earth. It tells us that renewal is not only possible, but it is our destiny, provided we align ourselves with the evolutionary impulse of the universe. This is not about wishful thinking. It is about recognizing the power that lies dormant within us. The same intelligence that created the galaxies and orchestrates the dance of life is present within each of us, as the stillness of our own consciousness. By connecting with that intelligence, we become instruments of peace and healing in a world that desperately needs it. Faced with the enormity of the world's problems, it is easy to feel small and powerless. We ask ourselves, what can I, one person, possibly do to change anything? This thought is a product of the ego. The ego feels separate and isolated. It cannot grasp the power of consciousness. But the truth is that the transformation of the world does not begin with grand, sweeping actions. It does not begin with trying to fix everyone else. It begins with one person. It begins with you. It begins with the simple yet radical act of taking responsibility for your own inner state of consciousness. This is where your true power lies. Your primary purpose in life is not to change the world. Your primary purpose is to awaken. All other actions flow from that. When you make the inner shift from being identified with your thinking mind to being rooted in the awareness of the present moment, you change your entire reality. You stop contributing to the collective insanity. You stop projecting your own inner pain onto others and onto the world. You are no longer a source of conflict and negativity. Instead, you become a space of peace. Your very presence has a transformative effect on those around you. You don't have to preach or try to convert anyone. Your state of being is the teaching. This is what love-driven action means. It is action that arises not from the ego's need to fix or control, but from the stillness of presence. It is action that is in harmony with the whole. It may be a small act of kindness to a stranger. It may be listening deeply to someone without judgment. It may be taking a moment to appreciate the beauty of a flower or the sky. These small actions, when they come from a place of presence, are infused with great power. They introduce a new frequency into the world, a frequency of peace and love. They are like ripples in a pond, spreading outward in ways you may never know. Do not underestimate the power of your own consciousness. The state of the world is nothing more than the collective state of human consciousness. Every single individual who awakens to their true nature adds to the light of the world's consciousness. You are a cell in the body of humanity. When you heal yourself, you contribute to the healing of the whole body. So do not be concerned with saving the world. That is too big a task, and it is a trick of the ego. Instead, focus on this moment. Focus on being present. Focus on allowing love and peace to flow through you. That is your sacred responsibility, and it is more than enough. Let us close with a vision of the world that is waiting to be born, a vision of the new earth and the new humanity that the ancient prophecies promised. This is not a distant dream. It is a potentiality that exists right here, right now, within the heart of the present moment. It is the world that emerges when a critical mass of humanity awakens from the egoic dream. It is a world where the great forgetting has ended and the great remembering has begun. A world where humanity has reclaimed its sacred role as the guardian of this planet and the conscious bridge between the realms of spirit and matter. In this renewed world, our relationship with nature is healed. We no longer see the earth as a resource to be exploited, but as a living, intelligent being to be honored and cherished. We listen to the wisdom of the forests, the oceans, and the mountains. Our technology is no longer driven by greed and the desire for power, but by a deep respect for life. We learn to live in harmony with the natural cycles of the planet, creating systems that are sustainable, regenerative, and beautiful. The fever of the earth subsides. The waters run clean again. The air becomes pure. Life in all its magnificent diversity begins to flourish once more. In this healed world, our relationships with each other are transformed. The illusion of separation dissolves. We recognize the same light, the same consciousness, shining in the eyes of every person we meet. The conflicts and divisions that plagued humanity for millennia fall away, because their root cause, the ego, no longer dominates our lives. Our societies are restructured around cooperation, compassion, and a shared sense of purpose. We celebrate our diversity, knowing that each unique culture is a beautiful expression of the one life. We create a world where everyone is seen, everyone is valued, and everyone has the opportunity to realize their fullest potential. This is the vision that calls to us from across the ages. It is the promise hidden within our current turmoil. It is the destination we are being guided toward, one conscious breath at a time. The path to this new world is an inner one. It is the journey from the head to the heart, from separation to unity, from fear to love. It is the most important journey any human being can take, and it begins now. It begins with you. By embracing the power of the present moment, you become a doorway through which this new, healed world can emerge. You become an expression of the new consciousness. You become the peace and the healing you wish to see in the world.